Live fast, die young. That was Gia Carangi's lifestyle. She burned bright and dimmed just as fast. Here's a story to remind you that one decision can change your life forever, or in this case, end it. A young, troubled model gets into the world of drugs, and what follows will shock you. Gia Carangi was born in 1960 in Philadelphia, and 26 years later, she died. Gia's life is the classic case of rags to riches, but eventually, the glamorous lifestyle went with the wind. Gia's career started when a photographer saw her dancing at a nightclub and started shooting her for the local newspaper ads. That same year, she would move to New York in search of greener pastures. Her modeling career kicked off when Wilhelmina Cooper signed her at Wilhelmina Models. Gia was not like the other models of the time. She wasn't blonde or blue-eyed. She was raw, no filter, makeup, and rebellious. Before Kate Moss, there was Gia Carangi. The shoot that brought her to the limelight was with photographer Chris von Wangenheim in collaboration with makeup artist Sandy Linter, where she posed nude behind a chain-link fence. Gia had these dark, edgy, and sultry features and a personality to match. Her look refined the definition of a model. She was definitely an antithesis model, much like Kate Moss, who came later. She worked with Peter Lindbergh, the same one who immortalized Claudia, Cindy, Christy, Linda, and Naomi on the covers of Vogue in the 90s. In fact, people say Gia was the first supermodel. Remember when they called Crawford Baby Gia at her debut on the runway? She was first an editorial model. She appeared on the covers of British Vogue, Vogue Paris, Vogue, Vogue Italia, and Cosmopolitan. She had a high fashion appeal and appeared on big runways like Armani, Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, and Calvin Klein. She was also in major branding campaigns for these brands and many others, like Maybelline and YSL. Towards the end of her career, she walked the Perry Ellis Fall Show. She was also featured in New York Sportswear's Advanced Supplement, wearing Regina Kravitz and Adriana Vittadini. This was in 1982, shortly before her career died a natural death. Now her modeling career ended at just 26. Unfortunately, the glitz and glamour of the modeling world made Gia start using cocaine, which eventually progressed to heroin. She died in 1986.
There's so many drugs in our food. You know, people take drugs every day and they don't even know it.
So you don't have, if you don't mind me saying it, you really don't have...
Well, of course I mind you saying it.
You don't have cocaine and heroin in food, I mean.
Well, you never know.
At the peak of her career, it was said she would snort some white powder in the bathroom stalls of CBGB and Studio 54. Gia said she was pulled into the lifestyle because she was young, and, well, it had been normalized. You see, in the 80s, doing drugs was glamorized in the media for some reason, and celebrities who openly did drugs were considered cool. Anita Sarka, retired DJ and Gia's friend, told Vanity Fair, "In those days, everyone had this idea that being a junkie was very glamorous. But here's the thing, her drug addiction spiraled and ultimately derailed her career. So in the 80s, the drug trend shifted from cocaine to heroin. And rumor was going around that if you just snorted it, as opposed to injecting yourself, you would not get addicted. And Gia fell for it, and as you would have guessed, she got addicted. She was among many of the accidental junkies of the 80s. Eventually, Gia started injecting herself, and you could even see track marks on her hands in her photo shoots. She was also becoming increasingly undependable. One time, at a Versace shoot with Richard Avedon, she said she was going out for a smoke, only to never return. She was becoming increasingly known for shooting up heroin during shoot breaks in the bathroom. She started losing jobs. At this time, only one photographer would work with her, Francesco Scavullo. Gia's hands had gotten so bad that Scavullo's stylist asks her out loud, "What about that awful thing on her hand? It looks like a volcano," while referring to an abscess.
You're free of it, aren't you now?
Oh, yes, I am definitely. I wouldn't be here right now talking to you if I wasn't, I don't think.
She talked about the addiction in a 1982 ABC interview, where she went into detail about the use of drugs in the modeling industry. She said she was clean, but she caught the headlines again with the same habit. At this time, Gia had dropped Wilhelmina Models and was signed by Ford Models. However, the agency dropped her around 1981 because of her recurrent drug problem. At the end of 1981, she was signed by Elite Model Management, but it was the same story. Her career was reduced to shooting for catalogs and department stores. She did her last shoot with Auto GmbH, a clothing company from Tunisia. Gia was trying to stop the habit, but she couldn't. She went to rehab multiple times and even got second chances from Richard Avedon and Albert Watson. It was clear she was a lost cause. Eventually, the modeling job stopped calling. Here's where it gets worse. Gia was broke and with no job. She had gone back home to Philadelphia to stay with her parents and sober up. At this time, she had spent all her money on drugs. So she went from working in high-end fashion to selling jeans at a shopping mall in Pennsylvania. She also took a job as a checkout clerk at a nursing home. She would sleep on friends' couches when she was briefly sober. In December 1985, Gia would be diagnosed with AIDS and would die from its complications the next year. She was so estranged from the modeling world that no one in the fashion world knew she had died. And so none of the famous faces were at her funeral. But the industry finally caught on. Her life story was cast into a 1998 film and the book Things of Beauty. A young, relatively unknown Angelina Jolie played Gia's character. Angelina Jolie paid tribute to Gia, saying, "That's the tragedy of her story. You thank God she didn't need drugs. She was a drug."
Here to see Wilhelmina Cooper. I have an appointment. Gia Marie Carangi. G what? G I. Hey, do you think you can remember that?
They really captured Gia's essence in this movie. Jolie was able to showcase Gia's drug addiction, childhood issues, and relationships with such raw emotion. She had studied the model before being given the script. Angelina Jolie said that in one of the interviews she listened to, Gia was supposed to talk about the dark side of modeling and why it can lead to drug use. She was to portray the bad girl gone good narrative. But Gia was spotted backstage snorting heroin shortly after the interview. Jolie was very candid about her feelings about Gia. She said she despised her at first, but as she got to know her, she felt connected to the person Gia was. She understood why she did the things she did. In an interview with the New York Times, she said, "I'd like to date Gia. I'd want to be her lover." Angelina Jolie won a Golden Globe for her role in the film, and Gia's memory was immortalized. Now let me tell you something interesting about Gia's life. Gia was one of the first openly gay models. This was something deeply engraved in her Philadelphia roots. You see, growing up, Gia was part of a group called Bowie Kids, which was basically a fan club for David Bowie. They would dress androgynously just like he did. At the time, Gia cut her hair short and dyed it in bold colors. She would wear distressed Levi's 501s, men's button-down shirts, and leather boots. Additionally, she had frequented DCA, a gay club in New York, where she met Sharon Baverly, someone she dated for a really long time. But Gia also had a few encounters with men, but she clearly identified as lesbian. In the film, Angelina Jolie is asked if she's ever been with a man before, obviously as Gia, and she responds, "Yeah, once. And I could have done that with a German Shepherd." Okay, let's make some things clear. Gia did not come out openly and call herself queer. At the time, topics around sexuality were generally avoided, and everyone was just assumed to be heterosexual. If she had come out as openly gay, that would have been career suicide in itself. You remember the first shoot she did with Linter as her makeup artist? She immediately became infatuated with her. She pursued her for a long time, but they never became an item. Gia was the blueprint. She made her mistakes, but that doesn't erase the impact she left on the industry. She was the victim of an industry that takes them young and offers no guidance or support, just lots of money and a lifestyle that is obviously overwhelming for a teenager. Gia walked so that the Bella Hadid of today could run. Call her mother, and she's a lesson to every other young woman out there.